Hi, welcome, and thanks for coming to Yoga Basics tonight. My name is Michelle Chua. So today we're going to focus on establishing the foundations for upside down postures for beginners. So that's poses like downward facing dog, and possibly, if you don't already practice it, you might try dolphin pose. So make sure that you have two blocks, you can see them behind me, and a strap might be useful for you today as well. Let's begin sitting in a comfortable cross-legged position of your choice. And I like to advise sitting on two blocks like this side by side on their lowest height. So you have a really nice wide base to place your pelvis on the front edge of, so that when you bring the thighs out in front of you, you're able to drop the knees open more easily. And if you find that the knees are still lifting really high, you can prop yourself up on an extra pillow a little higher, or even place folded blankets or any kinds of props that you can put underneath your outer knees, your outer thighs. So remember that the use of props is really to help you get the most access or optimize your experience in these physical asanas. So with that, take a moment to settle in, make a conscious transition from what you were just attending to now arriving in your yoga practice. I want to share one of the Yoga Sutras from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali as translated by Nischala Joy Devi in her book, The Secret Power of Yoga. This is Sutra Book 1, number 30. Perception of our true nature is often obscured by physical, mental, and emotional imbalances. Perception of our true nature is often obscured by physical, mental, and emotional imbalances. So you might remember that the 8 limbs or practices of yoga as a lifestyle, as an art and way of being, a way of living, not only includes the physical poses, which we practice largely here in this hour, and these poses are called asanas, but they also include techniques of breathing to regulate your energy. That's called pranayama. They also include learning how to concentrate and go into meditation. Those are the upper limbs of yoga. And they also include values that we establish in how we relate to others and to ourselves. So these physical postures that we're focusing on help when we have physical, mental, and emotional imbalances, right? You know that if you start to do some form of exercise and you're feeling depressed, for example, or you're feeling low in energy, often that can help you to boost your energy. Specifically today, these inversions or postures that take our torsos upside down so that the brain is lower than the heart. Downward facing dog and dolphin pose, which we'll focus on for beginners, help to reset our nervous system. Dolphin pose tends to be the more heating, more energetic one, and downward facing dog can vary with how long you've been practicing, how comfortable you feel in the pose. For some, it's kind of a resting position that helps them to relax and cool down. And for others, especially if you might just be starting to practice downward dog, it might be a little bit rigorous, especially if you're still building your upper arm strength to hold yourself in the pose. So whatever it is, notice how you are uniquely affected, especially as we practice these inversions. And inversions can also be when you're in a standing forward fold, which we focused on a couple of weeks ago. So today we'll be breaking down in our bodies the different ingredients for coming into downward dog and in dolphin pose with intelligent alignment to safely place our bodies in our joints and to efficiently optimize how we're creating space in the body for breath and energy, prana, life force energy to flow. And remember, we're promoting balance. If we spend much of our time upright, where the brain's up here and the heart's down here all day long, we're encouraged most of the circulation going with the flow of gravity going downward. But as we flip our bodies upside down, we're resetting, we're boosting our blood flow to the brain and to the heart from the lower parts of the body, as well as boosting our digestive flow. It's a way to mentally reset also energetically reset if you're feeling some sort of stagnancy. So there are a lot of benefits to doing inversions. And like I quoted in the Yoga Sutras, they help us to bring balance to our mental, physical, and emotional states. And we're also going to be using specific breathing techniques to help us with that. So let's begin the practice by checking in with what's on your plate right now. Making sure that your two sitting bones, the left and right bottom bones of the pelvis, are equally grounded so that you're lifting up tall through your spine and up through the back of your skull. Roll the shoulders up, back, and down a few times until you can really feel that your collarbones are opening a little wider. Your sternum, this bone in between them, is lifting a little taller. And you can create more space for the breath. Now, without changing the breath, just sit here for a moment and maybe close the eyes. Notice anything you're feeling in your body, any kinds of sensations, including areas that might feel tense, sore. So acknowledging your physical state. Now bring attention to the breath again without changing it. Feel a few cycles of natural breath. Because the breath is always a great indicator of your nervous system, of how you're feeling energetically. So through the breath, observe how you're feeling energetically. And now become more aware of how your mind feels. As you observe it for a few moments, notice where your attention goes or the quality of your attention. Sense if your mind feels calm or agitated, focused or scattered, without judging it, without judging yourself. And along with that, notice how you feel emotionally right now. Sense the energy of your heart. So accepting what is for you as you begin your practice. We're going to check in at the end and see if anything has changed in any of these areas. Now, bring a hand to your chest and bring a hand to your lower belly if you feel comfortable with it. And invite the breath to expand into both of your palms. Allow a few exhales through your mouth, and you might even sigh any sound. Maybe each time playing with lengthening the breath a little longer. And as you continue to do that, I invite you to think of something that you appreciate in this present moment, anything. Because by practicing gratitude, we acknowledge that we have abundance in our lives in any form. So from that perspective, it's empowering then to set your intention. So what is it that you would like to invite into your experience, into your state of being through this practice of yoga today? For example, if you've been feeling very agitated today or frustrated, you might be welcoming a feeling of calmness, peace, and contentment. So, what quality might offer you a state of greater balance? And as you focus on that quality, let it become part of your presence already in the way that you're breathing, in the way that you're posturing your body and holding yourself up. And then remembering that the work we do here not only is to benefit our individual selves, but it is to spread that well-being to those around us. I invite you to think of somebody or a community that you would like to dedicate this practice to today. And as we open our practice together, let's join our voices, chanting Om to create resonance 3 times. Inhale a little deeper.
So as we move through the practice today, remember that your body is always giving you information. Please listen to that, all the sensations, and take everything at your own pace. Slow down, rest if and when you need. So with that being said, let's help to regulate a state of focus in our minds and balance of energy in our bodies by practicing a breathing technique called victorious breathing. In Sanskrit, it's called Ujjayi Pranayama. It's done by closing your lips, only breathing through the nose, and gently narrowing or softly constricting the back of your throat so that you create a very soft whispering sound that you can listen to throughout your physical practice. It's a way to anchor the mind in the now and focusing on regulating the breath so that it's really slow coming in and really slow coming out, where you're balancing the energetic inhalation with the calming exhalation, their natural qualities. So listen to 3 cycles of that breath right here, your own. Really take your time to feel the breath expand gently into your lungs, into your belly, even the back of your torso. And to find the very bottom when you've completely emptied the breath. Remember, you're regulating your nervous system through this breathing technique. So take your time with it and see if you can keep that slow rhythm going. Now, as we come down to hands and knees, let's place the blocks just near the front of the mat. We're going to start by warming up the spine and shoulders in cat-cow pose, which is called Bitalasana in Sanskrit. So as you spread your fingers really wide, flatten them on the floor so that your thumbs are directly pointing forward or maybe slightly turned out. The turnout can help if you're feeling roundedness in the shoulders like this. As you turn out the hands, it can promote opening the front of the shoulders a bit. And then stack your shoulders right on top of your wrists. Step your knees about 2 inches behind your hips so that your torso has a little more space to move around. Now we're going to bring the spine into flexion and extension to the rhythm of the breath. So exhale this breath out, really listen to it, and take the entire length of the inhalation to glide your torso forward, roll your shoulders back and down, lifting the chest and look up so that the top of the breath, you're gazing up. As you exhale, slowly contract the abdomen, begin to round the back, drop the head, keep the arms straight, doming into cat pose, bottom of the exhale here. Again, inhale, slowly glide your chest forward, roll the shoulders back, coil your chest up, cow pose. Exhale, slowly lift the belly in. Feel the tailbone tucking down as you drop your skull to round. On your own, 3 more cycles of breath, 3 more cycles of cat-cow pose. Let your body move just as smoothly, as fluidly as you are regulating your breath. And notice how your shoulders are moving in opposite directions. Notice how your shoulder blades feel in both postures, the cat and the cow pose. Now relax to a neutral spine and have your hands on top of blocks with the blocks on their tallest height.
And then from here, step your right foot forward just to the inside of the right block so that your legs are hips width apart. Tuck the left toes, and we're gonna warm up our hamstrings and our groins. These are components that will help us in our first downward dog. So make sure as you're in a kneeling lunge that your front knee is directly on top of your front heel. It's not in front of the heel like this. And then your hands are right under your shoulders. So you don't want the blocks to be over here where it's far away from you, because that makes it harder to control your balance. Have your hands and your blocks directly under your shoulders where your shoulders can relax and your spine is upright. All right, so inhale here, let your pelvis sink. As you look up, keep relaxing the shoulders down. Keep your feet where they are, and exhale, start to lift the left knee. Begin to draw your right outer hip back. So to some degree, you're straightening the legs. And imagine you're creating a flat back, and with that flat back, only bow as much as you can maintain it. If your back starts to round, you've gone too far. You could either bend the knees or you could lift the torso up a little higher. So just go to the range where it's not straining you at all. So we're gonna move in and out of those two postures 5 times with a breath. So inhale, lower the left knee, kneeling lunge, look up. Exhale, lift the left knee. Remember, go as slowly as the breath. Scissor the right hip back as you bow, pyramid pose. Inhale, kneeling lunge. Exhale, pyramid pose. Notice the pattern of the breath you're listening to. Inhale, kneeling lunge. Exhale, pyramid pose. Inhale, kneeling lunge. Taking your time, exhale, pyramid pose. As you move slowly, it's easier to practice mindfulness moment by moment so that you're tuning into how your body's guiding you. Exhale, pyramid pose. Last round, inhale, kneeling lunge. And you can more easily prevent injury when you're easing slowly into and out of a pose, right? Because you're more alert of how your body's talking to you. And as you lower the back knee down, step the right knee behind you and we'll switch sides. As you step the left foot forward, again, notice, make sure that your legs are hips width apart and that your front knee is directly on top of the heel and that your blocks are right under your shoulders where you can have the greatest openness in your neck and shoulders. We're not lifting the shoulders up towards the ears. Tuck your right toes, and as you breathe in, let your pelvis sink, gaze up, relax the shoulders. As you breathe out, lift the back knee, and remember, you're only straightening the legs to whatever does not tense your body. So maybe the legs don't straighten all the way, especially in the beginning. As you're drawing your left outer hip back, you're also reaching the chest forward. You want to feel as if you're creating a flat back. The belly engages, shoulders are relaxed. All right, now let's move 5 times in and out. Inhale, kneeling lunge, look up, relax the shoulders. Exhale, pyramid pose, lift the right knee, bow as if you have a flat back. Inhale, kneeling lunge. Use the entire duration of the breath. Exhale, pyramid pose. Inhale, kneeling lunge. Exhale, pyramid pose. Inhale, kneeling lunge. Exhale, pyramid pose. Inhale, kneeling lunge. And you might find that your range changes after 3 or 5 or not. Exhale, pyramid pose. You're just working with what's here as it is. Last time, I think. Exhale, pyramid pose. All right, now this time, step back to your knees and place your blocks across your mat at the top so that your blocks are on their second level. So here's first level, here's second, here's third. So find the second level, the medium height, and place the blocks touching each other, going across the mat like a train. Now, as your knees are at least a foot behind the blocks, we're going to practice the shoulders as they will be in downward facing dog. And we're going to stretch them out a little so they're easier to be in downward dog. So start with your arms forward like Frankenstein, palms face down. Draw the shoulder blades down your back and see how much you can lengthen the neck as you press the shoulder blades down. This is what you want to feel in downward dog, this open, lengthened neck where the shoulders are far away from it, because that enables this passageway. Remember your throat, as the breath goes through your nostril, goes through your throat. This is a huge part of where the breath passes through. You want to keep that area spacious. Now, the other aspect is to find your triceps. It's these muscles on the outer sides of your upper arms, and rotate your triceps downward. And notice that when you do that, let's see if you can see, your shoulder blades protract. They move apart and out. They move out and up. They move apart and up like a protractor. And that will help to broaden across the tops of the shoulders. So that creates more space horizontally. So triceps rotating down, shoulder blades down the back. Now, bend your elbows and place them exactly your shoulders distance apart on the blocks. Press your fingertips into each other and step your knees back until they are about 2 inches behind your hips. As you listen to your breathing, Ujjayi breath, trace your thumbs down the back of your skull, down the back of your neck, as far back as your thumbs will trace. As you maintain elbows, shoulders distance apart, let your head fall as freely as it can, let the chest sink, and lift the belly inward towards the spine. So don't let the belly just dump down. Engage your abdomen and pull your hips back. So you want to support lengthening the lower back that way. We're going to be here for about 5 more slow, steady breaths. So if your elbows start to splay apart, you need to come up and readjust them. Because as they splay wider than shoulders distance, it will be counterproductive to what we're trying to do. So continue to send your shoulder blades down your back and rotate your triceps towards the ground. One more deep breath. At the bottom of the exhale, engage the belly in so that you can rise up and off the blocks. Now, I want to show you something that you can do with a chair. If you have a chair, you can use that in front of you. For those of us who have really tight hamstrings, the back muscles of the thighs, or even glutes and lower back, because they're all connected, this can be really helpful. You can either use a wall, you can use a table. I'm going to create sort of a table chair out of these 2 blocks and pillow, just to show you an option. So I'm going to go from the hopefully most accessible way to practice downward facing dog to the least use of props. And so if you have something high, like a chair or a table, even higher than this, you can place your hands, you can start behind, and just like we did with the elbows, right? When the elbows were on the blocks, you want to rotate the triceps downward, protract the shoulder blades, send the shoulder blades down the back. But instead of placing the elbows on the prop, you're going to place your hands with the fingers spread really wide, making sure that your index fingers are not turned inward like this towards each other, but they're pointing straight ahead. So they're parallel to each other or slightly turned out, like I mentioned before in cat-cow pose. And you'll place the hands, your wrist, shoulders distance apart. And as the arms are straight, you can bend the knees and step back where your hips are right on top of your ankles. Your feet are hips distance or wider apart and parallel. And you're bending your knees as much as you need so that it creates the feeling of a flat back. The belly is engaged here. So the belly's not just dumping down, it's helping to lengthen the lower spine. And notice that your head is lengthening forward. I'm not just dropping the head here. I want to elongate all of the spine out through the crown. The tailbone is shooting up and back. So downward facing dog. So here is one way to practice it using more props. Using less props, you might place the 2 blocks a little wider than shoulders distance apart on their lowest height and plant your hands flat on those blocks. And we'll start with the knees on the floor again. So with the arms straight, walk back with your knees directly underneath your hips, where you can create the feeling of a flat back again. Engage the abdomen, draw the shoulder blades back, lengthen the neck, and spin your triceps again towards the floor, creating as much length in the spine and out through the crown as possible. And you can notice through the breath if you're able to relax the neck and shoulders. You want to feel a free flow of breath. So often this way of practicing downward dog is called puppy dog pose. So it's kind of like a half downward dog. This is helpful because it gives you more focus on stretching your back and less weight is placed on your hands as more of your body is coming down through the legs. So if you have wrist issues, you might practice this puppy dog version with blocks or without blocks. Now coming into the no use of props, the traditional downward facing dog. So to set up, first, you want to have your shoulders stacked above your wrists, spread the fingers flat, the knees about 2 inches behind the hips, just like we had set up for cat-cow. The feet are hips distance apart and parallel to each other. Then from here, tucking your toes, make sure your palms are really flat. And as you bend the knees, pull your hips as high as you can away from your hands towards your rear wall. Now try to create that feeling of a deep stretch in the spine and the back, where your shoulders, again, are moving away from the neck and your triceps are spinning towards the floor. How's the breath through all of this? Remember, breath is among the most important things that we can use to regulate our energies. So keep that slow, steady, whispering breath going. Now, as you first arrive in downward dog, you may want to pedal your feet. It helps to loosen up your calves and hamstrings. So try bending one knee generously as you press the opposite heel into the floor and straighten that leg. And then bend the opposite knee, drop the other heel, straighten that leg. And as you pedal the feet, you might even swivel your hips side to side, whatever feels natural. As you swivel the hips, you can also stretch into your outer hips, the sides of your torso along your waist. Also, it's easy to get tense in the shoulders, so you can shake your head a few times, and that will bring relaxation into the neck and shoulders. You can nod the head a few times, breathe in through the nose. Let's open the mouth and sigh it out here. Ha. Okay, come on down to your knees and take a moment to stretch your wrists. So make fists out of your hands and give yourself a fist bump like this. Keep your fist bump and then place the backs of your fists on the ground about 1 foot in front of your knees. With your elbows flared off the ground, begin to shift your weight forward just to the amount of stretch you want to feel in your outer wrists and forearms. And as we're here for about 5 breaths, relax the neck. You might shake the head gently no, or any kind of movement of the skull. Send the shoulders back. Deep breaths. And then as you come back to sit on your calves, shake out your hands, roll out your shoulders as you listen. So I want to show you some things that might happen when you're practicing downward dog and how to address these issues that might arise. So one thing is, if you have tightness in your hamstrings and lower back, then your body may want to compensate by rounding forward and putting too much weight in the hands. And when you're coming way forward, then that starts to stress out the wrists. And it closes off the area of the neck and shoulders. As you start to round, it's harder to breathe. You don't get oxygen to the brain. You might get a headache, blah, blah, blah. So how do you address that? First, bend the knees. And as you bend the knees, lift the tailbone up and back. Lift the tailbone up and back, bend the knees, draw your weight towards the rear of your mat. It's okay if your heels don't touch the floor. Most important is you want to get that elongation of the spine where you're not closing off the breath by shrugging the shoulders. Then you can integrate rolling the triceps towards the ground, protract the shoulder blades, and drawing the shoulder blades down the back ribs away from the neck. Now, another thing that can happen is, even though you're doing that, you have a lot of stress in your wrists because maybe you're lifting the knuckles or that space between the thumb and the index fingers away from the floor, where the hands are not really flat. They're kind of just cupped like this. When you start to do that, all the weight will sit into the wrist. So you really gotta, I'll bring this close to the camera, find the part where it's the base of your thumb, this area, the base of your index finger, flatten that into the floor in the space between them. And then you might imagine you have suction cups underneath the tips of your fingers. So that's also rooting down. So as you radiate the weight out more evenly through the ends of your fingers, less weight is stuck at the wrists. So find your version of downward facing dog, whether you're on your knees, whether you're placing your hands on a chair, or you're not using any props. And let's stay there for 3 to 5 deep breaths. Now being still, even though you're visibly still, direct the energy to flow by how you're shifting weight around. So you're pressing out and forward through all your finger pads. You're lifting up and back through your shoulders and hips. You're relaxing the neck, letting the crown of the head lengthen forward towards a space between your thumbs. And you're hugging in the belly, giving support to your lower back. If you're not using any props, you're firming the tops of your front thigh bones back near the hip creases, and you're rooting downward through the heels. Even if the heels aren't touching the ground. If they are touching the ground, you might even lift the toes. All right, one more deep breath in Adho Mukha Svanasana. That's the Sanskrit word for downward facing dog. All right, let's come down. Hands and knees on the floor, wrists under shoulders, kneeling version of plank pose. Gaze on the ground in front of your thumbs and lengthen the neck. Keep rotating the triceps towards the back wall, just like downward dog. With the belly lifted and engaged, inhale in your plank pose. Maybe you decide to straighten the legs, that's up to you. Exhale, glide forward, bend the elbows back so they hug your side ribs. Lower through Chaturanga Dandasana and come all the way to the ground. So the heels of your palms should be right beside your floating ribs if you glided forward enough before you lowered. Flatten the tops of your feet into the floor and hug your elbows towards your ribs. 3 cobras coming in and out. So as you press down to your feet, inhale, roll your shoulders back and broaden your chest forward, cobra pose. Exhale, release down. Go to your pace of breath twice more. Inhale, draw the shoulders back. Cobra in Sanskrit is called Bhujangasana. Exhale down. Inhale, Cobra or Bhujangasana. Exhale, press up, hands and knees, tuck the toes, spread the fingers flat. Take your version of Adho Mukha Svanasana for 3 breaths, downward facing dog. After you finish your 3rd exhalation, please walk up to the top of your mat, forward fold. Press down with your fingertips either on your shins, on blocks in front of your feet, or the ground itself. Really press with your fingertips vigorously enough so that as you breathe in to stretch the spine forward, you can really feel that elongation again, like in downward dog. Exhale, forward fold. Press down with your feet. Inhale, sweep your arms forward and slowly rise all the way up. Now pause here for a few breaths and see if you can bring the same feeling of your arms in downward dog. So spin your triceps to face forward. It's just like the triceps were rotating towards the ground in downward dog. Draw the shoulder blades down your back. And here the palms are facing each other or the hands are connected. Now, as you lift the arms, make sure your front ribs are not coming forward like mine tend to do like this. If they are, seal in the bottom of your front ribs and stretch the tailbone down towards your inner heels. Stand tall. This posture is called hands overhead in mountain pose, or in Sanskrit, it's called Urdhva Hastasana. Gazing up, inhale here. Exhale, join your hands in front of your heart center. Hands in prayer in mountain pose, or in Sanskrit, it's called Padasana. Come back to your intention for today's practice. Listen to your ujjayi breathing, that gentle whispering sound. Let's practice a sun salutation A. Inhale, sweep your arms forward and overhead into Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, bow over your legs in Uttanasana. Press your blocks to the floor. Inhale, lengthen the spine forward in Ardha Uttanasana. Step back to plank pose and exhale, glide forward. Graze your elbows by your side ribs through Chaturanga Dandasana. Come all the way down. Press the tops of the feet down. Inhale into Cobra, Bhujangasana. Tuck your toes and exhale into downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Pause for 3 deep breaths. Can you feel the space around your neck and shoulders? Wrap the triceps down, relax the neck. Can you feel the full length of your spine? Notice if it's helpful to bend the knees and pull the hips further up and back. Now in downward facing dog, please bring your feet together to touch. Inhale, raise your right leg behind you. Try to square your hips so they're evenly facing the ground. Exhale, softly step your right foot forward to the right and come onto the ball of your left foot into a high lunge. Feet hips width apart, parallel. Inhale, rise up into crescent lunge. So you might start by placing your hands on your hips here, and just to help guide your 2 hip bones, these frontal hip bones, to face forward, bend the back knee and let your tailbone point downward. Engage the lower belly, slightly lift the frontal hip bones, and feel the back of your skull lifting up as the shoulders relax down. You can keep your hands here if that helps you to balance better in this pose, or raise the arms up. Bring those arms of downward dog, triceps forward, shoulders down. 3 more breaths. Hands together or apart. Now bring your hands to your hips, spin the left heel down so the left toes are pointing still towards the front of the mat. Slide your right foot a few inches to the left so that right heel intersects the arch of your left foot. Keep your right knee bent directly on top of your right ankle as we enter Warrior Two. Feel your right glute. Rotate your right outer hip under your body so that your right kneecap points open towards your right pinky toe. Feel the top of your left thigh bone. Press the left thigh bone back as you roll the right glute under so that you can feel your pelvic bowl sitting upright. Shoulders over hips, tall centered spine between the feet, open the arms, and let your wrists stack above your ankles as you gaze just past your right fingertips. Let your body be still. Concentrate on the balanced flow of 3 more breaths in Virabhadrasana 2. One more inhale. On an exhale, lower your hands to frame your front foot. Please step back to downward facing dog and pause for a full breath. Notice anything you're feeling in your body. Then bring your feet together to touch here. Inhale, raise the left leg behind you. Keep the hips squared. Exhale, step the left foot forward and to the left. Have your feet hips width apart, parallel to each other. So the back heel is lifted high. Press to your feet and inhale, rise up for crescent lunge. Again, you might place the hands on the hips. Direct your right outer hip to come forward. Tack the left outer hip back. Bend the right knee and let the tailbone drop down as you slightly lift your frontal hip bones. So it feels like the bowl shape of your pelvis is as upright and neutrally positioned as possible, which will help the spine to be as tall and spacious as possible, which then affects your breathing. And then as you raise the arms, triceps forward, shoulders down, hands together or apart. 3 more breaths in crescent pose. Place your hands on your hips again as you spin the right heel down. Point the right toes slightly to face the front of your mat. Slide your left foot a few inches to the right until your left heel intersects the arch of your right foot. Keep the left knee bent directly on top of the ankle. Spin your left outer hip under your body so that you can turn out the left thigh enough where the kneecap is pointing towards the pinky toe without pivoting the foot. So we're not turning the foot at the ankle, we're turning from the left hip socket. Firm the top of your right thigh bone back so that you can feel that the bowl shape of your pelvis is as upright as possible, affecting your spine's length, your breath's length. And then as you open your arms, stack your wrists above your ankles, steady your gaze just in front of your left fingertips. And now feel into the breath again, 3 more cycles as we practice focusing here in Virabhadrasana 2, Warrior 2. This time, keep your feet apart and actually, let's come on down. Come on down to hands and knees. Change my mind for the sake of time here. Okay, so come on down to hands and knees, and we're going to practice one more inversion, and that is dolphin pose. Yes. So remember what we practiced on the blocks when we put the elbows on the blocks? That really open shoulders. Before I started the recording, I asked our live community, what are some issues you experience in dolphin pose? And one was feeling that well, let me show you what it looks like first, just in case you're not sure what I'm talking about. So here's dolphin pose. One of the issues was feeling that the feet were too far back, away from the elbows. And some things that you can do is, one, just like in downward dog, bend the knees. And with the knees bent, you can pull the hips back. But also that could be from the shoulders. Another thing you can do is step onto blocks and have your toes tucked on blocks, elbows on the floor, and then we'll lift up here. And that can give you a little more leeway for the hamstrings. You can bend the knees. Maybe you walk the elbows back, which will require some upper body strength. But everything is through practice, right? We get the body to become more flexible by consistently practicing certain postures, especially the ones that we may not like, because those can be our greatest teachers, right? It's easy to say, I know, but as you practice those postures that you might find you have aversions to more and more, you might have insights not only about your body, but about yourself as well. Because it's interesting what these poses can teach us beyond the physical, right? So let's get set up for dolphin pose, and then I'll address anything else that may come up. So come to sit on your calves or your knees on the floor, extend the Frankenstein arms out, and wrap your triceps downward, press the shoulder blades down the back. And then now you can either have your forearms parallel to each other like this on the floor, the palms face down. But I find if your mat is slippery, or just to create more feeling of stability, that it's helpful to interlace the fingers and create this triangle base out of your elbows and your outer wrists. It also helps not to splay the elbows apart, to have the hands interlace. So I invite you to do the interlace fingers, and then if you feel more and more comfortable with that, you could also experiment with forearms parallel. So let's place the elbows on the ground, make sure they're exactly your shoulders distance apart. And if they start to splay apart when you're in the pose, come back down here onto your knees and readjust your elbows, because that really affects the stability of your shoulders. You want to keep the shoulders safe. Now, while you're here, let your neck lengthen. Draw the shoulders away from the neck. Establish your ujjayi breathing, and use your forearms, your outer wrists and elbows to push away the floor. Now test how it feels to just sink into the floor. You'll notice that the shoulders shrug, and it's not very conducive to spaciousness for the breath. So If you press down with the intention of lifting away from the ground, you create more space in the joints of your shoulders. And that actually creates more space for the breath, more space in the pose, and you can actually be in the pose longer. So as you press down to your outer wrists and forearms, lift away from the ground energetically. And in this posture, you can either look forward just in front of the knuckles of your hands, which is more active, more rigorous, or you can drop your head and just let the head hang freely. You're not putting any weight on your head. Do what's more comfortable for you to start. And then have the knees as close to you as possible, tucking the toes, feet are hips distance apart. Lift up the hips, just like downward dog, and press your chest back towards your shins. As you press the chest back, you want to have your shoulders slightly behind the elbows, never hovering in front of the elbows. How's the breath? If you find the elbows splay apart, you might have to come down to your knees to bring them closer together. Now from here, bend the knees, pull your hips up and back, engage the belly. So see then if you're able to walk the toes forward, maybe even just a centimeter forward. If not, that's totally fine. Lift the hips, pull the hips back. Just like downward dog, you want to feel that elongated spine and that spaciousness around neck and shoulders. And then what happens with the legs will happen with the legs over time, over practice. A few more deep breaths if you're still here. And then we'll keep the head low. Try not to lift your head upright right after. Come down to your knees when you're ready to come out. Bring the inner edges of your feet together to touch. Release your arms down beside your legs and rest your forehead to the floor, child's pose. If your forehead does not comfortably reach the ground, you can grab your block and place your forehead on top of it. And just listen to a few more breaths. Slow down your breathing. Notice how you're feeling right now energetically. How is your energy affected by practicing dolphin pose right now? If it's something really new to you and you're still building up the strength in the upper body to maintain it, then it might be kind of tiring, and that's totally natural. If it's something that you've been doing for a bit and you've built a practice of dolphin pose, you might actually find it energizing. But it also depends on what you're coming into the practice with. If you've already had a very energy depleting day, it might have a different effect. So it's just good to pay attention to these things. All right, take your choice of one more inversion, downward facing dog or dolphin pose. On your own for 5 breaths if you can, and then we'll meet in child's pose. Those of you who have been practicing dolphin pose for a while or downward dog for a while, you might choose to bring your feet together, keep your hips leveled or squared, and lift one leg straight up for a few breaths as you flex or point that lifted foot. And then switch legs. Remember, like anything, practice, practice, practice. And then let go of your expectations of the outcome, right? We show up and we trust the process. Showing up wholeheartedly, consistently, and over a long period of time. We all have unique paths and different paces. So trust that your journey is your own as it's meant to be. And after you've rested in child's pose for a few breaths, please roll your spine upright, interlace your fingers behind your back. Find a way to sit that's comfortable for you. If it's not comfortable to sit directly on your calves, you might sit on your block between your ankles like this. And as you interlace your fingers behind, bring the knuckles of your hands over to your left outer hip so we can stretch the front of the right shoulder. Imagine you're squeezing a ping pong ball between your elbows. So bring the elbows close together and then drop left ear towards left shoulder. So you can open up the right side of the neck. Imagine breathing into the right side of your neck, right side of your chest. Long inhalation and even longer exhalation. One more deep breath. And then let go, shake out the hands, shimmy out the shoulders, switch the interlacing of your thumb and index. So one might be the automatic one on top, do the other, and then wrap your arms over to your right hip, squeeze an imaginary ping pong ball between your elbows, and then drop right ear towards right shoulder. So I'm mirroring you here. Imagine breathing into the left side of your neck, left side of your chest. Breathe in slowly, breathe out, if you can, even slower, as you're helping your nervous system to relax more deeply. So reflect on how you felt physically and mentally and energetically in both those inversions that we broke down today, downward facing dog and dolphin pose. What was your experience in them today? And if you have questions about these poses, those of you live, we can talk about it after this recording, but those of you not live, feel free to put it in the comments below in this YouTube. And I'll be happy to address them there. Now let's bend the elbows apart, cross the right elbow on top of the left, and either press the backs of your hands against each other like this, or if possible, wrap your forearms and palms. So this is called eagle arms. As you slide the shoulders down, lift up taller through the spine. Lift your elbows to the height of your shoulders and gently press your forearms away from your face. Now picture the area between the shoulder blades, your shoulder blades. Breathe into that. Longer exhalations. On your next inhale, lift your elbows a little higher and then backstroke the arms to switch the elbow on top. Press the backs of the hands together or wrap your forearms and palms. And as you relax the shoulders down, sit up tall, lift the elbows to the height of your shoulders, and gently press your forearms away from your face. Picture breathing into the space between your shoulder blades as if you could massage your body from the inside out using the breath. The area where you're picturing is a common area to hold tension, mental stress. So as we're opening up these areas that can be physical manifestations of mental tension, we help energy to flow more freely, right? Because our energy is affected by everything, the thoughts that we think, the way we move our bodies or not move our bodies, the emotions that we feed. And then exhale, release. All right, let's practice a breathing technique to prepare for Shavasana and meditation. This is 3-part breathing. So place a hand on your chest, a hand in your lower belly, and envision that your torso is divided into 3 parts. The lowest part is from your pelvic floor up to your belly button, all the way around. The second or middle part encompasses most of your rib cage, and the third or uppermost part encompasses your chest, upper back, and neck and shoulders. So placing a hand on the lowest and the topmost, we will divide the inhalation into thirds. First third in the lowest, second third in the middle, last third at the top, and then we'll hold the breath in before we'll exhale everything out slowly through the nose and hold the breath out. Let's practice 2 cycles together and 2 cycles on your own. This is called 3-part breathing, a way to relax and ground, and it's called Durga Pranayama in Sanskrit. You might close the eyes, empty this breath to prepare. Into the lowest part of your torso, inhale 1/3. Pause. Into the middle part of your torso, inhale 1/3. Pause. Into the top of your torso, inhale the last third. Hold the breath. Exhale everything very slowly through the nose. Hold the breath. Last one together. Inhale the lowest part. Pause. Inhale the middle torso. Pause. Inhale the top. Hold. Exhale everything through the nose. Hold. Continue 2 more times on your own. And take your time to complete at your own pace, no rush. When you have finished, relax into natural breathing and observe how you're feeling. Notice the effects of that breathing technique. You might keep your eyes closed so that when you're ready, you can gently lower your body to the ground, lie down in the most comfortable resting position for a few minutes of corpse pose of Shavasana, where you continue to breathe naturally, close your eyes, rest your body in stillness. And keep your awareness present. Now let your body rest here in stillness a little bit longer as you scan your awareness throughout your feet. Notice any sensations there. Then up your legs. And on your own, continue into the rest of your body, just observing. Notice if you feel anything different physically since we checked in at the beginning. And now, being very gentle and gradual, start to wiggle your fingers slowly, wiggle your toes, gently move your head, and maybe keep the eyes closed so that you're still tuning inward. This is one of the practices called pratyahara. Begin to roll over onto your right side, resting your head. And once there, notice a few cycles of breath without controlling the breath. As you feel the way your breath is flowing now, notice your energy. Does it feel any different since the beginning of this practice? Then take your time lifting your body upright to sit. Find a way to sit that you can feel most comfortable, to be tall, relaxed, open. And then you might continue to close the eyes. If not, steady a soft gaze at eye level in one spot. And let's begin a minute in meditation. Maybe bring the thumb, first fingers to touch to help concentrate. Feel where in your body you can most easily observe the breath without controlling the breath. Maybe it's your chest, maybe it's your nostrils or somewhere else. And then place your awareness there and let it gently remain there. If it goes away from it, come back to it over and over again as you need for 1 minute. Now, maybe resting a hand on your chest and a hand on your lower belly. Sense the way your practice of yoga, your different practices of yoga today has affected your energy. Do you feel in any way more balanced mentally or physically or emotionally? Do you feel more grounded? It's important to reflect after you practice to really know how it's working for you and to inspire your continuation of your practice as well. Now call to mind something you feel appreciation for. Even thanking yourself for showing up to your practice today. Then mentally restate your intention for your practice today. Imagine that someone or something that you dedicated this practice to in some way receiving benefit. And as we close, let's join our voices again, chanting Om 3 times. Inhaling. drawing in the light within me honors the light within you. Namaste.